Fatu. During the heat of the game, it's clear he's a champ when all else disappears. Rally the team with a wink and a cheer. He's the leader that everyone fears. Quickly, it's a real heater. Once my friend, he's a locker room leader. In the chaos, he's the center, turning us into believers.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is Sunday night. It is 7 p.m. and welcome to the Locker Room Breakdown Rasslin recap, hot off the heels of Saturday night's main event last night. And what a show it was. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a look back at the week that just happened in WWE and the week that is to come. We are going to deal with the fallout from Saturday night's main event and the go-home for Clash in Italy next Sunday afternoon. I am OM Dynamic. Thank you all for being here. Great to have you. We had, like I said, it's been one hell of a week here in the WWE with Raw, with SmackDown, with everything that has happened. And let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Last week, we had Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu to open Raw, but as Roman got to the arena, he was greeted by our general manager, Mr. Adam Pearce. And as they were having their little discussion backstage, because Adam Pearce was ready to fire Jacob Fatu, send him packing because the whole thing was over between him and Roman, they were interrupted by Jacob Fatu's music as he made his way to the ring to call out Roman Reigns. He was instead greeted by the Usos. Are we seeing the reformation truly of the bloodline? Ladies and gentlemen, with what we're about to go through, I'd have to say we are. Jay came out holding a chair. Jimmy trying to make play the peacemaker because we know he had history with Jacob on SmackDown and trying to make sure that he had some backup. We know that the previous week, Jacob laid waste to everybody. Jay eventually tried to get a cheap shot in, and the Usos were laid to waste by Jacob Fatu before our tribal chief made his entrance to save the day. Ladies and gentlemen, this was not a case of Roman Reigns saving the day. This was a case of the numbers game once again. And the bloodline. It's there, ladies and gentlemen. As Jacob was putting Roman down, he ended up going to Super Kick City by the Usos, even getting tied up in the ropes and eating a couple of Superman punches. This, ladies and gentlemen, both of these men, Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu, are both incredibly over with the audience. Roman is still the guy as your world heavyweight champion. But this was a case of the Usos really falling in line, so to speak, with what the tribal chief wants. Like I said, they laid him out with super kicks. They hit the 1D. And as they walked out of the ring, they got back up to the top of the ramp. Out came Adam Pearce to tell Jacob Fatu he was fired. But Jacob got himself the mic and said, Roman, tribal combat. Which left everybody perplexed until Roman Reigns said, I accept. Jacob Fatu, who was on his way out the door, going to be fired, probably headed back to SmackDown. But I think it's safe to say Jacob Fatu is fully ingrained into the Raw brand now. And we are going to Tribal Combat at Clash in Italy this coming Sunday. I knew that the match wasn't going to be a one-off, but now this needs some finality to it. Does Roman end up being able to recruit Jacob after Clash in Italy? Do we see Jacob move back to SmackDown? Or do we see Jacob move on to something else, or Roman move on to something else with Jacob being fired? We need some closure on this. We need some finality to it. The only way this continues is if you put the belt on Jacob at Clash in Italy and you put Roman as a man on an island. We've seen the foreshadowing. We've seen the teases of the Usos potentially aligning with Jacob. Does that happen at Clash in Italy? We will forecast that just a little bit later on here tonight. Our first match of the night was a street fight between former Judgment Day brothers, teacher versus student. But has this gotten stale, and is a change needed for Finn Balor? We had Finn Balor and his former protege, JD McDonough, once again go at each other in a street fight. We know that we have to get back to a Finn Balor versus Dom match, but we've already had the Demon versus Dom at WrestleMania. So what else is there? Is this just a stagnant rivalry? What happens for me with the Judgment Day, you've seen it when somebody has been battling them, and I can go back to Finn Balor, AJ Styles, and Liv Morgan. But it always seems to really, really drag out. Rhea Ripley versus Liv dragged out on, and it didn't matter because you had Raquel that could get in there, Roxanne who could get in there, and all of these things just get overplayed. We are getting a lot more of JD McDonough on our TV screens, which is absolutely amazing because this guy is an extremely talented competitor who should be looked at in a serious Intercontinental title contention spot. And this match went back and forth. This was two Irish ass kickers going at each other. And as I've touched on, we've seen it before time and again. Teacher versus student, master versus pupil. This was, again, back and forth, but every time in this match that JD seemed to get the upper hand, Finn had the counter for it. And it was almost a reverse squash match, with Finn Balor coming out on top. We did see Dom Mysterio make his way to the ring and allow JD to put Finn through a table. But again, there was nothing. Finn was able to duck a 619 because in a street fight, there are no rules. So Finn needs something more. And whether we go to Finn versus Penta, which I would be great with seeing, I would love the idea of that match. Maybe it's time to move Finn to SmackDown, give him a bigger opportunity, a bigger opponent, and you can reunite him there with Damian Priest and R-Truth to really get the new Judgment Day. Do we go that route, or do we see Finn strike off on his own for a while and not really look for the backup? I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. The answers are there, but we just have to wait and see. But again, this is a situation that truly needs some finality to it. Do I think we're going to get Dom versus Finn this coming Saturday at AAA Noches de las Grandes? I don't believe so. I think that's something that's going to be saved for down the road, if that's the route they choose to go. But I think it's time to get Finn Balor a fresh start and a new opportunity. Something that has been considered an epic promo that I would consider not so epic. Becky Lynch and Sol Ruca. Becky Lynch seems to stumble over her words and stutter every time she is doing a promo of late. And it's not just when she's getting to, I'm the greatest women's wrestler of all time, I'm not the only one that says it, yada, yada, yada. It is. Through everything, when she is confronted, she seems to trip over her words. And I don't know if that's by design or if that's accidental, but it almost seems to be unintelligible for her promos. I need Becky Lynch to be clear. But this came about as Becky Lynch interrupted Sol Ruca in a backstage interview and told Sol to get out of here. So Sol went out to the ring and put out the challenge. The match ended up getting made for Saturday night's main event. Good evening to Nixie CS. How are you? Thank you for joining me here. Much appreciated. Always a pleasure to welcome somebody new into the fold. How did you find the show? I'm glad to hear you're doing well. I am doing okay as well. It's been a very, very quiet and relaxing day today, which I've needed for a day off. Throughout this promo in the ring, Sol tried to push and get the Intercontinental Championship on the line. Becky said, no, I'll give you your match at Saturday night's main event, but the title's not on the line. You haven't earned it. We've seen throughout the week that it went back and forth. Non-title match, non-title match. Oh, and Nixie has been following Turnbuckle Studios. Much appreciated since November of 2025. Thank you so much. And I truly appreciate you coming in and joining the chat. This is absolutely incredible. Much love. But what did Sol do to ever earn an Intercontinental Championship match? She's had 3 matches now on the main roster. Her debut match against Liv Morgan, which she lost. She had her first face-to-face with Becky Lynch, a match against Io Sky, which she lost. And then she ended up getting the match on Saturday night, which, again, we will talk about in just a little while. But again, I need more and I need better from Becky on the mic than these unintelligible Braun Breaker-like promos. Ahead of this coming Saturday's AAA Noches de las Grandes event, we had El Grande Americano and Los Americanos, Bravo and Rayo, versus the original El Grande Americano and Los Americanos Hermanos, Julio and Bruto. And what a 6-man tag this was. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, it gets confusing when you've got two feuding factions of the same name and the same ilk. But Rayo and Bravo can deliver in every aspect of the game. Technical, high flying, power, you name it. Same with Los Americanos Hermanos. We both know what the El Grande Americanos are capable of as well. They are fantastic wrestlers and catch-as-catch-can wrestlers in their own right. And this is coming into this coming weekend's Noches de las Grandes, where the two El Grande Americanos will face off in a mask versus mask match in what I believe is your main event for this coming Saturday. And I cannot wait to sit down and watch that. This match was back and forth. This match wound up being the cluster bomb of cluster bombs, however, as this was one of those matches where everybody had to get their spots and their marks in. So you did wind up with the kicks and somebody hitting their finisher with the next guy hitting their finisher. Something that really needs to get out of these multi-man tag matches. There is a time and a place for it. I understand that. I appreciate it. But this was more about the Americanos. We know that Los Americanos and Hermanos and Los Americanos are not really focused on the tag team title picture at the moment, regardless of whether it's on Raw or on AAA. And I think that if we're going to do that, we need to get them focused into that tag team championship picture. And maybe you have to do that is give one of those teams a clear direction or give them a match and tell them you're going to get a tag team title shot in the future. In the end, it was the El Grande Americano as well as Rayo and Bravo Los Americanos picking up the victory with the triple headbutt, all three of them having that lead plate inside their mask. I think after this weekend, we need this rivalry to come to an end. We get the finality, whether it is who we believe it is under either mask. I think you need to completely unmask one faction and go in that direction with them. As well, ladies and gentlemen, original El Grande Americano and Los Americanos Hermanos used to have a female. Just not under the mask. And maybe it's time you get somebody there under the mask. Who could it be? I'm thinking of a certain Pitbull type female who needs to start getting showcased again because we know that she delivers each and every time she is in the ring. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to continue on with the Raw review here in just a moment, but I need your help.
A Turnbuckle affiliation program is looking for more people. If you have passion level for pro wrestling, sports, video games, or something else, then Turnbuckle Studios is the place to be. If you have ever wanted to pursue content creation and want to join our team, then we would love to have you. Check out turnbucklestudios.org or contact us by email today because your future is now, and we want you to tap in.
And ladies and gentlemen, turnbucklestudios.org is your home for the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program. If you have ever wanted your break in podcasting, content creation, or to help us out behind the scenes, go to turnbucklestudios.org, hit the join button, email us your credentials, tell us how you can help us, how you believe we can help you, we will sit down as a collective and find the right fit. All of that and more at turnbucklestudios.org. Backstage, we saw the return to Raw of one L.A. Knight. Yeah. But not in the way you'd expect. First, he confronts the Usos, telling them, you know what? Just a little while ago, it was the three of us doing battle with the Vision. But now, you have this little Ufalafa ceremony. And yes, he said Ufalafa instead of Ulafala. And you're doing this business like, is this the bloodline? Jimmy tried to say, not yet. Jay was being rather stoic. But LA Knight said, you do dirt, you're going to get dirt. You want to cause trouble? There's going to be trouble. And if it's got to be at my hands, then so be it. This is something, could we see LA Knight form an alliance with Jacob Fatu, or does LA Knight become that lone wolf? We will touch on that. We also did see Michael Cole in a sit-down interview from earlier in the day with Ethan Page. Now, this was very, very intriguing because Ethan Page handed Michael Cole some questions that he wanted asked. And Michael Cole eventually said, you know what? I can't do it. You do have it all. You've got the looks. You've got the style. You've got the ability. Why the ego? Ethan Page said, no, it's not ego. It's confidence. And I am going to be your Intercontinental Champion this coming Saturday. I like the idea of these pre-made, phony BS questions because it allows that talent to get themselves to the level and show us who they truly are behind the scenes and just how creative their minds think. We know that Ethan Page has been around the industry for close to 20 years. Only the last two, maybe 2.5, under the WWE banner. Very, very intriguing. I like this. Would Ethan Page go on to dethrone Penta on Saturday night to become the Intercontinental Champion? Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to touch on Saturday night's main event just a little bit later on. With their second Women's Tag Team Championship defense in 8 days, Paige and Brie Bella defended the Women's Tag Team Championships against the Judgment Day, Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez. I went on record here last week and I stated that we would have new women's tag team champions. I was wrong, ladies and gentlemen. I was wrong. This was a good, solid match. Roxanne really carrying the pace and showing just how far she has come as the prodigy. And I do say it, and I stand by this. She will be a women's world champion before this year is out. This match was fast-paced. We did see Liv Morgan get involved, but Jessica Carr caught her and distracted her or threw her out. but it almost allowed for that cheap shot that would have been a disqualification. But Brie was able to roll out of the way and roll up Roxanne Perez, picking up the pinfall so that she and Paige, now known as Scream Mode, could escape with those women's tag team championships ahead of Saturday night and their match with the Irresistible Forces, Nia Jax and Lash Legend. Ladies and gentlemen, I am thrilled to see the women's tag team championships being showcased across Raw and SmackDown. But maybe it's time we go and see them defended in NXT, as they are supposed to be defended across all brands. Ladies and gentlemen, I would even go so far as to say, you've got TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Why not let Paige and Brie go to TNA as part of this partnership? Even if it's a non-title match, and wrestle. Showcase that women's tag team wrestling is the hottest it has ever been, and that women's wrestling in general is as hot as it's ever been, and it is only getting hotter. After the match, we did see the Judgment Day once again lay waste to the champions, all for Bayley and Lyra to come out. But ladies and gentlemen, this is another partnership that seems to be going nowhere. And by SummerSlam, so I'm going to give it to the start of August. We are mid-May, almost to June. So 2 months, you have to figure out what you're doing with Bayley and Lyra. Whether you're going to put the tag team gold on them or whether you're going to split them up. Because it is time, ladies and gentlemen, you need to do something right with them. You can't just have them putting people over all the time and not getting the rewards. I would be okay with a Bayley-Lyra feud. I would be okay with Lyra turning heel. I would be okay with Bayley turning heel, but I do seem to like this face Bayley more, and maybe you need that Irish last kicker again, but now you need it to come out in Lyra Valkyria to really step up and take the show. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I see Lyra as a pillar of the women's division, as well as a future women's world champion. And I've said it, I think we'll see it by the end of this year. And maybe it's time for Lyra to go and get a fresh start over on SmackDown and get some new competition for herself. Because what did I say earlier about the Judgment Day? These things seem to drag on and on. The Judgment Day and Bayley and Lyra have been at each other's throats for the past year, on and off. Always get fantastic matches, but we need the finality, and they need to figure out what they're doing with Bayley and Lyra. Backstage, again, we see LA Knight confront Seth Rollins. This was really, really intriguing. And LA Knight, again, holding Seth accountable, not willing to have his back against the Vision. Because this all started with Seth and LA Knight. Seth knows he's got no friends, no allies, but LA Knight was taking his suitcase as he was leaving the building. Is LA Knight headed back to SmackDown? Is LA Knight going to where there may be the opportunity to do something a little bit more? I'm very, very intrigued to see what is going to happen and what would happen at Saturday night's main event. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we had the Obafemi Open Challenge. First time we saw it, he took on Otis. The following week, he beat up Los Garza in what was a 2-on-1 handicap squash match after having to drag them from the back. This past week, ladies and gentlemen, holy shit. Before the lights even came up, we saw Oba getting jumped from behind. And when the lights came up, the beast, Brock Lesnar, was in the ring and dropping Obafemi with F5 after F5. And he hit 4 or 5 of them and yelled at Oba to stay down. We saw this prior to their WrestleMania encounter with Oba getting the upper hand just about every occasion. And that was why I felt that they needed Brock to get the win at WrestleMania, because he had already been giving Oba that rub. Now, we are going to get that match apparently at Clash in Italy, because we all thought and we all bought in to Brock Lesnar having retired. This was incredible. Perhaps the highlight of the night on Raw. Everybody at home, everybody here at Turnbuckle Studios, everybody in the arena last was left in utter disbelief. We saw Adam Pearce then backstage telling the agents, the producers, his backstage staff, go and find him. I need to see him in my office, all of that. To walk into his office and find Paul Heyman saying, I already filed retirement paperwork on Brock's behalf. Paul Heyman handed a contract to Adam Pearce with Brock's signature on it, saying, all you need is Oba's signature and we can have the match at Clash in Italy. Ladies and gentlemen, is this going to be Obafemi's first loss on the main roster? I think we're going to find out a little bit more tomorrow night with the Raw Patrol right here at 8 p.m. Eastern. On to our main event, ladies and gentlemen. For the first time in 9+ months, Seth Rollins getting a match on Raw. And no one to have his back, as he was going one-on-one with the Vision's Austin Theory. This is an interesting one, because if you remember back during the pandemic, as we first started to see the Visionary, the Revolutionary, the Messiah in Seth Rollins, he had taken Austin Theory under his wing. And we were all wondering, we've all been wondering, is Theory true to the Vision, or is Theory Seth's guy on the inside? The people don't know whether to trust Seth Rollins. The guys in the back don't know whether to trust Seth Rollins. We as fans don't know whether to trust Seth Rollins. Although Seth Rollins does adapt and evolve his character. Seth Rollins is into that. I'm going to change my character every 6-8 months so that it's something new, even though it's the same thing. It's just a matter of whether he's going to be a heel or be cheered or be in between, and becoming one of those divisive wrestlers. But he is another one that does not need a title to truly be relevant and be a true main eventer. I'm going to really make this one interesting here, because Seth Rollins is going to need some backup. What if an old adversary came back to say, Seth, I've got you, and it's CM Punk? Mr. Best saying Bailey is busy right now in AAA helping Catalina and Lola Vice. Well, again, we still need more from Bailey. If Bailey's going to do that, then maybe you need to do the split on the Bailey-Lyra thing and not have them focus on the tag titles. Let Lyra move on to something bigger and better. Because Lyra versus Soul for the #1 contendership would be a fantastic idea. This was a great match, though, between Seth Rollins and Austin Theory. Theory able to take control because, of course, he's got Logan Paul at the ringside area for him. Logan able to cause some distraction. Rollins able to counter and counter and counter. Even hit the setup for the pedigree. Theory even got brass knuckles handed to him, but neutralized by Seth Rollins, who retrieved it. The ref stopped it. Seth was eventually able to pick up the victory with the pedigree. Afterwards, of course, we got Angelo Dawkins coming out because we did have the Vision beating down on Seth Rollins ahead of their match at Saturday night's main event for the Tag Team Championships. As Angelo Dawkins was getting beaten down, we saw Montez Ford come out to make the save. He was doing it for his partner. He wasn't doing it for Seth. Let's be clear on that. This was not about him trying to protect or save Seth freaking Rollins. Ladies and gentlemen, I love the Vision, but I think that even with Braun Breaker back, they are still missing something, and I don't think that Logan Paul and Austin Theory as your tag team champions, as good as they are, and as much as I am a fan of theirs, and specifically Logan Paul, who I will say is still better than The Rock. But this is something that maybe you need to find some new champions. You need to get Bronson Reed back. I know he's injured. You need Bronson Reed back. You need another member of the Vision. Maybe this is where you could repackage a Grayson Waller. He and Logan Paul have had chemistry. Well, we know about Logan Paul in A-Town Down Under. I think that would be absolutely fantastic to have for the Vision. But now it's a thing. These beatdowns, these 3-on-1s, and the numbers game. We saw it, like I said, to start the show with the Bloodline. We're seeing it with the Vision. It's getting to be too much of the same thing in one show, and it is getting a little bit stagnant. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be right back and we are going to preview Monday Night Raw. But I want you to take a look at what we have coming up for you each and every night of the week here at Turnbuckle Studios.
Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program bring you the week of streams. All times are in Eastern Time. Monday night we are on call as the Raw Patrol is on duty at 8 p.m. Tuesday brings you the flagship show, Turnbuckle Talk, at 8:05 p.m. Wednesday we play games with the PlayStation Showcase at 8 p.m. Thursdays we roam the jungle with the Boar's Nest at 9 p.m. Friday we invite you to come for a ride with the SmackDown Security Detail at 8 p.m. The weekend brings you Saturday Night Gaming at 8 p.m. On Sunday, be sure to catch the Chris Parrish podcast at 12:15 p.m. And later in the day, the Locker Room presents Rasslin Recap delivers at 7 p.m. Always be aware that weekend shows can vary in times, as the PLE Patrol and other watch party streams are always a must-see. Be part of the shows and join the chat every day and watch all of the latest episodes on turnbucklestudios.org/shows. And please do not forget to drop a like, follow, and to subscribe to all of our channels, and when the time is right, all you have to do is tap in.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. There is something for you each and every night of the week at turnbucklestudios.org. Head on over to the show section to find out everything that's there. While you're there, click on the hosts. Meet the team behind those shows. Myself, Chris Best, Chris Parrish, Bubba Duke, Logan Thompson, and the Godfather himself, Carl Carafel. Get all of our socials by clicking on our individual links and watch our latest weekly live episodic programming. All of that and more at turnbucklestudios.org. Not a whole lot to be talked about yet for tomorrow, but we do know that we are going to get the fallout from Saturday night's main event. We did hear from Adam Pearce earlier today, who has said he is going to have one hell of a conversation with Becky Lynch over her actions at Saturday night's main event, as she will now be defending the Intercontinental Championship against Sol Ruca next weekend at Clash in Italy. We are going to get Obafemi opening the show tomorrow to address what happened last week with Brock Lesnar. Is he going to put his name on the contract? Are we going to get that match that is Obafemi and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania? Or does Oba say, nah, Brock, you retired. I retired you. What are you doing? There's no point to this. I've beaten you once. I will do it again. I think, again, this is a situation where we're going to get that sneak attack from Brock Lesnar. We're going to get him laying it down. And I think we are going to get that challenge, that match accepted. We know it has been made and announced for Clash in Italy. Does Oba try and make it official, or will Brock make it official tomorrow night? We are going to get a contract signing, and we all know how these go. Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu in tribal combat. Ladies and gentlemen, the last time we saw a contract signing for tribal combat was Jey Uso and Roman Reigns. And Jey said then, we don't need a contract. It's tribal combat, which means anything goes. This is supposed to be one-on-one, but in tribal combat, anything goes. The last time we saw it, Roman and Jey, was where Jimmy came back and turned on Jey, thinking that Jey was going to become more like Roman. And he didn't want his brother to turn into him. Is this the situation now where the Usos are going to turn on Roman and leave him on an island? Is this a situation where we see the true reunion of the bloodline? Is this going to give us the closure that we need on Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu? I think that this match will. I think that this match is going to be what Jacob needs to truly, truly break through and capture the gold. But I also think that if Roman retains, we need Jacob to acknowledge Roman and fall in the bloodline. This is where things get truly, truly interesting. Jacob is going to be coming out looking for that Tongan death grip. Neither man is truly the babyface in this. Neither man is truly the heel. Both men are beloved by the WWE Universe. Both men are going to get their cheers. Both men are going to get their boos. Where do we go with this? If Roman wins, it needs to be finality. If Jacob wins, then I think you go to one more match, maybe at SummerSlam, to close the chapter. Do you remember what I said a little while ago? The Judgment Day feuds seem to drag out. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Once again, Bayley and Lyra versus Roxanne and Raquel. I love the match. I love the idea of pitting Lyra and Roxanne against each other. But please, please, put something at stake. Let the winners become number one contenders. Give them a shot at the tag team championships. Because otherwise, this is just going to keep dragging out. And if Bayley and Lyra lose, have one of them snap and turn on the other. Have one of them disappear. Have Lyra move to SmackDown. Something. It is time for WWE to either shit or get off the pot with this. This is another situation where we need some clarity and some direction, especially for Lyra and Bayley. We know we're seeing the dissension in the Judgment Day as well. Does that continue to grow as a result of this match? It very well could. And ladies and gentlemen, we are dealing with the fallout from Saturday night's main event. Plus, this is the go-home show for Clash in Italy next Sunday at 2 p.m. And you can join Turnbuckle Studios and the PLE Patrol for a live analysis and reaction. Ladies and gentlemen, while you're at
The Turnbuckle Studios,
we want you to head over to our shop, check out all of the great merch you can buy, and we're going to come back and cover SmackDown.
The Turnbuckle Studios store is open for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the merch and represent the best from the shows you watch on a weekly basis. Multiple styles to choose from with over 10 products available. Don't get left out and pick up all your favorites today. Find us at turnbucklestudios.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, turnbucklestudios.org is your home for the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program. And we want you to head to our shop, powered by redbubble.com. Support your favorite shows and your favorite podcasters. Wear what we wear. And a reminder, all of your proceeds come back into our studios to bring you a better experience. All of that and more, turnbucklestudios.org. For a show that we didn't really have a whole lot of info going into, we knew we were going to get Tama Tonga and Shinsuke Nakamura. This show absolutely stepped up and delivered. We got a match that everybody has been waiting for on the main roster. But let's start with that. We open up with Rhea Ripley and what's happened between her and Jade Cargill. But Rhea wasting no time. She issued the challenge. But it brings out Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. And we know that Charlotte and Rhea are no strangers to each other. We know their history. But we also saw them put their differences aside last November at Survivor Series War Games to be able to work together. We knew they were getting ready for Saturday night's main event to take on Jade Cargill, Michin, and B-Fab in 6-woman tag team action. But would this lead to perhaps another Charlotte Rhea match? Or is this something that we're going to start to build now to WrestleMania in WrestleMania in Riyadh? Or do we look at something a little bit sooner? With the obvious tension, Charlotte and Rhea exchanged harsh words before anything could be settled. They get interrupted by Fatal Influence, which would have been a great setup in 6-woman tag team action. Charlotte wound up issuing a challenge for a tag team match that was accepted, but nothing settled with Rhea. Inconclusive for this? No, but we did get what was going to be a very interesting tag team match come out of it. The addition of Fatal Influence to SmackDown and to the SmackDown Women's Division cannot be understated or undersold. It is absolutely incredible. I'm going to be the first to admit that when she first debuted, I was not big on JC Jane. But ladies and gentlemen, over the years, she's the one that survived. Toxic Attraction. Mandy Rose released. Gigi Dolan released. JC Jane, the first woman to simultaneously hold the NXT Women's and the TNA Knockouts Championships. In fact, the only woman ever to do that. She has come so far, and she is just incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for JC Jane. Fallon Henley, ladies and gentlemen, chef's kiss to her. She again has put in the work, put in the time, made the effort. Lainey Reed, I'm glad to see her getting those reps on the main roster because we didn't see a whole lot of her on NXT. And the fact that they kept Fatal Influence together as a faction. Creative, that is a chef's kiss to you. But we go to our opening match, which was the only match we knew, and I thought it was going to come a little bit later. Shinsuke Nakamura and Tala Tonga. Very interesting. Tala, of course, accompanied by Tama Tonga and Solo Sikoa, the MFTs. What a match this was. And ladies and gentlemen, why they can't do more with Shinsuke Nakamura, I will never know. I don't know if Shinsuke is just happy in his role or if Shinsuke wants to actually move up and do something a little bit more. I would love to see Shinsuke get back into the U.S. title picture. I would love to see Shinsuke move over to Raw. Or if you're going to do something and you move a guy like Finn Balor to SmackDown to give him a fresh start, Finn versus Shinsuke would be one hell of a way to get both of these men truly, truly going. This, again, for a long time, Tala Tonga really reminded me of Shanky, but Tala can move, Tala can work. And the fact that Shinsuke was able to get his moves in, really control and dictate the pace of this match, showed just what a ring general he truly is. Despite the difference in size, weight, and power, Shinsuke was not treated like an underdog. He was shown to be able to use that Japanese strong style, something that we know that Tala and Tama Tonga are used to. So it is something that they could do and work together. However, thanks to Solo's distraction, Nakamura took the choke slam and ate the loss. And then they were looking to beat down on Shinsuke Nakamura, but Tama Tonga stopping Solo Sikoa from hitting the Samoan spike. All for him to use that devastating back elbow to Shinsuke Nakamura's head and really put him out. But this brought out Damian Priest, which is really intriguing because Damian Priest and Shinsuke have no affiliation. We know that R-Truth is not cleared to wrestle, but we know that Damian Priest and R-Truth do have issues, as well as another potential tag team championship match against the MFTs in the near future. Is Damian Priest the right fit, or would there have been a better fit for this situation in a guy like a Royce Keys? We're going to touch on that again here in just a little while. Well, speaking of Royce Keys, we did see him backstage with some words for the MFTs. Solo tried to shrug it off, but Royce was pissed about what happened the previous SmackDown with Solo costing him that one-on-one match against Gunther. This is something that we need. Are we going to go to a Royce Keys versus Solo? Does Royce actually join the MFTs? What more do we find out later on in the show? But after Trick Williams got rid of the US Open Challenge, for the men's side, our new Women's United States champion, Tiffany Stratton, decided to invoke it for her title. And this was very, very interesting, ladies and gentlemen, because who would her opponent be? We were tossing names. We thought it might be Blake Monroe making her SmackDown debut. We thought it could be a Jordan Grace. One of us, I dare say it, I actually called it during the SmackDown security detail. Could it be a Lash Legend or a Nia Jax? Ladies and gentlemen, we did get Lash Legend accepting this match. And that was really, really intriguing because this was her first foray into the quest for a singles title on any brand. Would she be successful? or would she leave empty-handed? We had to know that Paige and Brie Bella were looking on from somewhere. We were wondering if they were going to get involved. This match, had it not been for the power outages, could have been viewed a whole lot better, but I really enjoyed this match. Lash Legend is truly, truly growing on me as a competitor, and I give her all the credit in the world for that. Lash, both of these women are able to use power, use agility. Tiffany has a little bit more speed and agility than Lash. Lash has a little bit more power. Both of these women could be considered the buff Barbie type of thing, but we know that Tiffany is trying to shed that image. With Nia Jax at ringside, it was really, really interesting because we've seen Tiffany say in the past that she didn't need a partner and she didn't need anybody out there to have her back. But it was really, really interesting to see Chelsea Green come out to ringside. Again, I thought that this match was where we were going to see Blake Monroe make her SmackDown debut, whether it was as a competitor or just causing a double disqualification and creating some more drama. But Green came out to support Tiffany, get her up, and we know that Tiffany and Chelsea have a long, long history. Nia did interfere, and then Chelsea Green pushed her into the ring post, which is really interesting because Chelsea and Nia have a history together as well. This distracted Lash Legend, allowing Tiffany to pick up the victory and retain the U.S. Championship. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this match could have been better than it was, but I still really, really quite enjoyed it. And I hope they do something and really put the shine back on that women's U.S. Championship while it's around the waist of Tiffany Stratton, because it seems to have lost some of its luster from when Chelsea Green held it. Can we get Jordynne Grace into this women's U.S. title picture? Do we move Jordynne Grace up to challenge a Rhea Ripley or potentially a Jade Cargill again? You know, we've talked about the Julia situation on SmackDown, and I'm wondering the same thing about Jordynne Grace. Have WWE really dropped the ball with these two? With Jordynne Grace, I'm going to say that I do believe they have, and I'd love to say I'm wrong. I've said the same thing about Penta, and I was proven wrong. But where do we go? Because these are women that can absolutely impact and elevate your women's division. And what are you doing with them? On to the match, ladies and gentlemen, that we have been waiting for since the call-up. Trick Williams came out to talk some trash and said the U.S. Open Championship is no more once again. Bragging about how quickly they beat The Miz the previous Friday. Until we heard the music for him. And Carmelo Hayes came out. Both men showed the other some love and some respect. Melo talking about how Trick screwed him out of the U.S. title, which technically could be true, but it was a case of that's where Sammy took advantage and picked up a win. Mello talked about his belief, but doesn't think that Trick will be a fighting champion. Trick's boy, Little Yachty, can we do away with him, please? Like, I know that he's great for Trick's image, but Trick is so much better without him. Trick doesn't need a hype man, ladies and gentlemen. What I would like to see is if we can go back to the Trick Mello gang, let Trick and Mello hype each other and themselves. Because that's exactly what this match brought. We got Williams accepting Mello, but not putting the championship on the line. And ladies and gentlemen, despite Little Yachty looking like Bill Cosby from The Cosby Show and a sitcom dad, yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, Little Yachty looked like a sitcom dad last Friday. This was a great match. We know about the history of Trick Mello gang. We know the wars they've had with each other, for each other, and against each other. You had to wonder where Ricky Saints would fit in. Well, Ricky Saints showed up in the crowd, standing there, not actually doing anything, but he did eventually get involved, causing a distraction by jumping on the apron, allowing Trick to pick up the victory with the trick shot over Mello. I am excited, ladies and gentlemen, if we are going to a Mello Saints feud, and we've seen that match already once, with Saints trying to use the ropes but getting caught, and then Mello using the ropes in the same way to pick up the victory. Or do we go to a triple threat match for that U.S. title? This is going to be very, very intriguing. Who else could get involved in the U.S. title picture? Backstage, we see Nick Aldis finding Danhausen, who is running experiments backstage, which has caused rolling blackouts, and telling him to stop. Danhausen finally short-circuited a couple of things, and off he went. Nick Aldis went over to a gurney, tried to lift the blanket over whomever could be laying there. And Danhausen comes back saying, no, stop. So he did. From there, we see The Miz and Kit Wilson talking before they get interrupted by Fraxium, and The Miz challenging Axiom to a match this coming Friday on SmackDown in his hometown, as SmackDown will be from Barcelona, Spain. Remember when I said we would get an interesting tag team match, ladies and gentlemen, coming on Friday night? We did. We all thought the Charlotte and Alexa pairing was, we're not enemies, or we're not friends, allies by convenience. We talked about the tension. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got Charlotte Flair teaming with our WWE Women's Champion, Rhea Ripley, to take on Fatal Influence, Lainey Reed, and Fallon Henley. Ladies and gentlemen, again, fantastic match, and I am excited because Fatal Influence is right there. They give us talking points. They are on the tip of our tongues, and we are here to discuss them. This match allowed for disagreements, conflict, stress, all of it, especially between Charlotte and Rhea, and really helped build the psychology behind these two women. We got to see Lainey Reed in there and work well with two of the very best in the world in Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley. And she was truly, truly able to hold her own. This match was highly, highly competitive. Rhea Ripley able to hit the Riptide, but Charlotte tagged herself in again, causing more tension, conflict, and drama by stealing the pin from Rhea. However, we did see Jade Cargill, B-Fab, and Michin attacking the three alongside Fatal Influence, and Cargill hitting Jaded on Rhea, which, again, would we see that again Saturday night or not? Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we are going to continue on with SmackDown, but once again, ladies and gentlemen, we could use your help.
A Turnbuckle affiliation program is looking for more people. If you have passion level for pro wrestling, sports, videos games, or something else, then Turnbuckle Studios is the place to be. If you have ever wanted to pursue content creation and want to join our team, then we would love to have you. Check out turnbucklestudios.org or contact us by email today because your future is now, and we want you to tap in.
The Turnbuckle Studios store is open for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the merch and represent the best from the shows you watch on a weekly basis. Multiple styles to choose from with over 10 products available. Don't get left out and pick up all your favorites today. Find us at turnbucklestudios.org.
And ladies and gentlemen, once again, turnbucklestudios.org is your home for the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program. All the information on how you can join us is there. If you have ever wanted your break in podcasting, content creation, or to help us behind the scenes, hit the join button. Tell us how you can help us, how we can help you. We will sit down as a collective. And while you're there, head over to our redbubble.com powered shop. Support your favorite shows and your favorite podcasters. Wear what we wear. And all of the proceeds come back into our studios to bring you a better experience. And if you let us know what you've bought and send us a picture, we will give you a shout out live on air during one of the many, many programs we have here each and every night of the week. All of that and more at turnbucklestudios.org. Ladies and gentlemen, the surprises just keep coming. Because remember I mentioned Damian Priest saving Shinsuke earlier? This led to a very, very interesting match, as we had Damian Priest coming out to take on Solo Sikoa of the MFT. With Tamatonga and Talatonga by his side. Damian Priest didn't have anybody. But, again, we've seen it. With the MFTs, you've got to try and get the upper hand quickly. We've seen Damian do it with Tamatonga. We've seen him do it with Talatonga. And again, Priest using a little bit of that punishment and maybe a little bit of stuff he learned from his time in the Judgment Day, jumping before the bell. This was a good, solid, once again, back and forth match. but a lot of it took place during what were the commercial breaks. So if you're in the US and watching on USA Network, you really missed out. For the rest of the world who have it on Netflix, we got to see a lot of the action, and what a match it really, really was. In the end, though, Tamatonga and Talatonga were able to create a distraction, allowing Solo to hit the Samoan spike and pick up the win. And then the MFT's jumping Damian Priest. And this is where we got the save from Royce Keys, leaving us to wonder, where does he truly lie? We know he's got history with Ricky Saints. We know that he and Solo have some sort of history. He and Jacob have some sort of a history. Solo refused to fight and left the ring. Royce helped Priest to his feet, all to be grabbed by the throat. And Priest realizing, no, he came out to help me, so he didn't hit him with the South of Heaven choke slam. Very, very interesting, but what does this do for Solo? If you're going to move the tag team belts over to the MFTs, do you allow them to embrace that Freebird rule, and any two of them can defend those tag belts on any basis? It's going to be very, very interesting to see what sort of scenario they go with there. Do they have something more in mind to solidify the MFTs? Does Priest have a new ally in Royce Keys, or is this going to be a situation that creates a lot more chaos? When is our Truth going to come back? We know that Truth has embraced and welcomed Royce Keys, but that's because they've had the street life. But so did Damien. And maybe that is something that they can all build off. Ladies and gentlemen, we had heard Sami Zayn a few times earlier in the night going off. And this brings us to our main event, because he said some things about our undisputed WWE champion that resulted in Sami getting some TV time and a match. Not just any match, but the main event, as we had Sami Zayn one-on-one with Cody Rhodes. And wow, ladies and gentlemen, this match was given its time. This match did not need anybody getting involved. This was a little bit of head games back and forth early to start. Both men had different times at Ring of Honor. So when they were able to do something, Sami would stick the hand out to shake it. Cody would shake it, but throw it away. And after a couple of times of that, the third time Cody did it and was able, or shook Sami's hand and then kicked him in the midsection. But this match did go back and forth. But we know that coming up at Clash in Italy, Cody is going to be taking on Gunther. And yeah, we got that distraction. But Cody was able to utilize that to his advantage, hit the crossroads, and pick up the win. But as Gunther proceeded to attack Cody afterwards, Sami Zayn, who is really feeling misguided right now after listening to his friends Cody and Randy tell him, you've got to start taking advantages of situations. Just walked away. Didn't try to help Cody, who they're friends, but just chose to walk away. Looked a little trepidatious a couple of times, and we know that Sammy and Gunther have had history. Is this truly the path? Do you turn Sammy full heel and help him work with Gunther to get the title off of Cody? Is it time for Gunther to have the title on a new brand? Is this time to put Cody into a different position, again, where he is chasing, and you can start it off on a feud with Sammy? Is this how you build to Sammy potentially winning King of the Ring? Is this how you build to Sammy potentially going to WrestleMania next year in Riyadh to win the championship? We also saw Chelsea Green backstage meeting Blake Monroe, who introduced herself. And Chelsea said, "I'm Chelsea Green." Blake says, "Yeah, I know. I saw what you did out there, and I wish I didn't." We saw Damian Priest and Royce Keys arguing about what happened. Priest saying, "I don't know you. I don't trust you, because we've never met before. We don't have a history." But ladies and gentlemen, that truly wrapped up SmackDown for last week. And ladies and gentlemen, for next Friday, we only have one match announced so far, and that is going to be The Miz versus Axiom. Are we going to go to a Kit Wilson versus Nathan Frazier? Are we going to see this match break down into a tag match? Is this going to break into a long-running feud? Or is this something that really pushed The Miz and Kit Wilson a little bit further into the tag team title picture? Is this where a guy like Johnny Gargano gets his groove back? Because again, we need something more from Johnny other than this stoic guy laying on crates in the back, seemingly lost with no direction. Ladies and gentlemen, that is everything for SmackDown. Right after this quick break, we are going to discuss Saturday night's main event, and we will preview Clash in Italy.
A Turnbuckle affiliation program is looking for more people. If you have passion level for pro wrestling, sports, videos games, or something else, then Turnbuckle Studios is the place to be. If you have ever wanted to pursue content creation and want to join our team, then we would love to have you. Check out turnbucklestudios.org or contact us by email today, because your future is now, and we want you to tap in.
Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program bring you the week of streams. All times are in Eastern Time. Monday night, we are on call as the Raw Patrol is on duty at 8 p.m. Tuesday brings you the flagship show, Turnbuckle Talk, at 8:05 p.m. Wednesday, we play games with the PlayStation Showcase at 8 p.m. Thursdays, we roam the jungle with the Boar's Nest at 9 p.m. Friday, we invite you to come for a ride with the SmackDown Security Detail at 8 p.m. The weekend brings you Saturday Night Gaming at 8 p.m. On Sunday, be sure to catch the Chris Parrish podcast at 12:15 p.m. And later in the day, the Locker Room presents Rasslin Recap delivers at 7 p.m. Always be aware that weekend shows can vary in times, as the PLE Patrol and other watch party streams are always a must-see. Be part of the shows and join the chat every day and watch all of the latest episodes on turnbucklestudios.org/shows. And please do not forget to drop a like, follow, and to subscribe to all of our channels, and when the time is right, all you have to do is tap in.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. There is something for you here each and every night of the week. So join us each and every night of the week. Catch your favorite shows. And now we want you to meet the team by going to the host section, clicking on our individual links, getting our socials, and watching our latest weekly live episodic broadcasts. Ladies and gentlemen, coming off of one hell of a Saturday night's main event, we are 2 weeks away from post-Backlash and 1 week pre-Clash in Italy. And I like the fact that the Saturday night's main event brings you a PLE-style feel in 2 hours. We started off with a very, very intriguing match. And I do want to say this, that friend of this show, my good friend, the Bulkster, was actually at Saturday night's main event last night and quite enjoyed it. We opened the show with 6-woman tag as Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair, and Alexa Bliss teamed up to take on Jade Cargill, B-Fab, and Michin. Ladies and gentlemen, these women brought it. I got more out of the Jade Cargill match at WrestleMania than I had ever had. And again, she is proving how much, with the right training, she has grown. This was a fantastic, fantastic match to open the show. B-Fab opening the match with Rhea Ripley. We talked about Lainey Reed. This was a huge step for B-Fab to be in the ring with someone like Rhea to open this match. After taking control, Alexa Bliss got tagged in, and we saw her really take the beat down. Or no, sorry, once Alexa tagged in, Charlotte Flair, Jade, and her cronies were able to start to take control. Charlotte doing such a masterful job and realizing that even as the queen, she cannot just snap her fingers anymore. And the way Charlotte portrays and carries herself now, I absolutely love it. I can go on record right now and say I am no longer tired of Charlotte Flair. I am quite enjoying her work over this past year and a little bit. As Charlotte was finally able to fight back and make that hot tag to Rhea, it looked like they'd found some common ground, and they even shook hands and even carried Alexa Bliss. But as everything had worked out, all of a sudden, they get knocked out. As Jade, B-Fab, and Michin were able to push all three together and then Jade Cargill hit Jaded on Rhea to pick up the victory for her team and solidify the fact that next Sunday at Clash in Italy, we are going to get Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley in a WrestleMania rematch. We'll touch on that here in just a few minutes. To the match on the night that probably shouldn't have taken place Thankfully, it was not for the Women's Intercontinental Championship, but Becky Lynch and Sol Ruca. This was a blink and you'll miss it type of match. I didn't even get to see it. All I did was I looked away for a second, and all of a sudden I heard the bell ring. And Sol looking forlorn because Becky Lynch had pulled referee Jessica Carr in front of her for Jessica to eat the Soul Snatcher and leave. What was the point? We know that Sol didn't have the Intercontinental Championship match. So what was the point in even having the match? Blink and you miss it. However, we did see Becky Lynch run into Nick Aldis afterwards backstage. And Becky said, "Did you see what happened out there?" Nick said, "I did. And I just got off the phone with your friend and mine, Mr. Adam Pearce. And next week at Clash in Italy, you will once again face Sol Ruca." Becky asked, "Well, what for?" Because Adam Pearce wasn't there, Nick told her, "It's for that Women's Intercontinental Championship." Ladies and gentlemen, Sol does not need to be hot-shotted into this. I like the idea of a big rivalry, but ladies and gentlemen, Sol has yet to truly win a match on the main roster, and you're hot-shotting her to potentially the Intercontinental Championship? No. Let Sol build herself. Let Sol establish herself. I understand that you could potentially go to an Io Sky coming out to back up Sol and cause a distraction. I understand that there's a lot of moving pieces in all of this, because you could also have Io Sky come out and say, "Hey, I got next." You could go countless different directions, because we know that there are still moving parts in all of WWE. Ladies and gentlemen, your match of the night, what we all thought was going to be the main event. Penta defending the Intercontinental Championship against All Ego Ethan Page. I thought Penta was going to come out on top in this match, and he did. But ladies and gentlemen, what a match. Ethan Page hitting an avalanche power slam. It's not something we see very often, but ladies and gentlemen, it looks so beautiful every time we do. Ethan uncovered one turnbuckle, and as the ref was trying to put it back on, he went over and pulled off the other one, causing Penta to go chest first into it. But Penta able to kick out because the ref was not in position to count the three. As Ethan Page charged in, he hit his shoulder off of that exposed turnbuckle, allowing Penta to hit the Destroyer and pick up the victory. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this was Ethan Page's first loss on the main roster. But what a showing for Ethan Page. We did not get any interference. I was anticipating Rusev. I was anticipating Javon Evans. I'm glad we didn't get it. And Ethan Page, you have nothing to be ashamed of, buddy. You're going to be the Intercontinental Championship, and I'm going to call it at SummerSlam. Our women's tag team match. Paige and Brie Bella, now known as Scream Mode, taking on the Irresistible Forces. Surprisingly, we didn't see Paige and Brie at SmackDown, which was actually good. We didn't need them there because there were a lot of moving parts around those tag team championships. And ladies and gentlemen, we've still got those moving parts around the tag team championships. And I am really, really interested to see where we go with all of that. We got the early start from the Irresistible Forces as they tried to jump the bell, but Paige and Brie able to roll out of the way and take control early. But again, not a great match, and you can see Paige working carefully, Brie still a little bit rusty, but still in better in-ring condition and a better wrestler than her sister. We got to see a little bit of everything in this match, but again, it resulted in Paige and Brie using a little bit of a heel tactic to pick up the win. As Paige, after hitting the move, was being held by Brie to make sure that the pinfall actually went through and stayed. Again, ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot to unpack here with Saturday night's main event. Did BFAB and Michin via that 6-woman tag up their game as far as the women's tag team title pictures? We know we've got Bayley and Lyra versus the Judgment Day tomorrow. Where do Charlotte and Alexa fit in all of this? Does this send the Irresistible Forces to the back of the line? Who's next to step up? This is going to be really, really intriguing, ladies and gentlemen. Let's keep the heat on and keep those championships really on TV for the foreseeable future. On to our main event, ladies and gentlemen. And we thought that it was going to be Penta and Ethan Page. It was the Street Profits versus the Vision. Logan Paul and Austin Theory for the World Tag Team Championships. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we really haven't seen the Street Profits in quite some time. Yes, they've had a 6-man tag on Raw since their return, but we haven't seen them wrestle as a tag team, as a unit, and they did not disappoint. This match did not disappoint. What I was concerned with was the runtime that was left, but WWE actually ran a little bit longer than 2 hours with this match. And although they came up short, the Street Profits are there and they will be in the title picture for the foreseeable future. This match really could have been different. The Street Profits could have won the match via DQ, but they were able to avoid attempted Braun Breaker interference as Montez Ford left over him, and Angelo Dawkins was able to launch Braun over the announce table. But as I say it with just about every guy named Braun, I run around the ring and I knock people down. And I'm already finding that Braun Breaker is going to be a guy much like a Seth Rollins, a Roman Reigns, a Cody Rhodes, a John Cena, and one of those truly divisive characters. It was, in the end, however, the brass knuckles from Logan Paul that allowed Austin Theory to pick up the victory and retain the championship. And as the Vision beat down the Street Profits afterwards, we did see Braun Breaker lay them out with the spear. And as they got the vision back up the entrance ramp, Braun went back down and delivered another vicious spear to Montez Ford. Is this a situation now where you need, if you're the Street Profits, where you need to go to a guy like Seth Rollins and say, okay, we know we don't get along, but right now we need to put all of that aside and work together. We need you to take care of Braun Breaker for us so that we can take the tag team titles. Is that where this is going? We know we're going to get Seth Rollins again and Braun Breaker very, very soon. I just don't know how soon. Is it going to be at the end of June at King and Queen of the Ring? Is it going to be SummerSlam? We need that soon, and we need the finality. Is this a position where CM Punk could come back and assist the Street Profits? There's a lot of moving pieces. Plus, we don't know where LA Knight stands. And with LA Knight saying what he said to the Usos, could he say to the Street Profits, look, I've battled the Vision. I can help you with them. Can you help me with the Usos? And then you really add some depth to all of this. And you're then going to build to a Vision versus Bloodline type of thing. A lot of moving parts. Ladies and gentlemen, next Sunday at 2 p.m., we go to Clash in Italy. This week, we have the fallout from Saturday night's main event on Raw and on SmackDown, plus the go-homes as we go to Clash in Italy next week. And we've got some huge, huge matches. We have Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar listed. Who's going to come out on top? Is this just a case of Brock Lesnar wanted to make one last international appearance? Or is this going to be sort of a trifecta of things? Is this a Brock Lesnar wants to come back to get revenge on Oba, and then we go to SummerSlam? Ladies and gentlemen, give me Brock Lesnar to pick up the victory in this and make it a trilogy. And then if that's the case, you let Oba retire him at SummerSlam in Minnesota. We go to Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill for that Women's World Championship. Give me Rhea to retain because of Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss there to counter the interference of B-Fab and Michin. I think with what we saw last night, Charlotte and Rhea starting to get on the same page and work together. I think we go to Rhea retaining, and potentially you move a Jade Cargill to Raw. And it opens up a whole new roster. But who do you move from Raw over? Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? This is where you could move a Lyra. This is where you could move a Bailey. This is where you can do a whole lot of stuff to really set apart the women's divisions. Becky Lynch and Sol Ruca. We just saw it last night in the Blink and You'll Miss It match. Now for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. I've already stated we don't need to hotshot Sol Ruca to the championship. Give me Becky Lynch by hook or by crook to retain. I think Sol gets the victory. Becky walks out with the championship. Cody Rhodes and Gunther. Can we get Gunther away from this career killer moniker, please? The fact that he switched brands, moved to SmackDown, and is right back into a title picture, I absolutely love this for Gunther. We need something new for Cody, who has said he's easy to find, hard to beat. Give me Gunther to come out on top as your new undisputed WWE champion. And I'm going to say that it is because Sami Zayn costs Cody Rhodes. Tribal Combat. Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu. One more time. If Roman retains, Jacob needs to go into the ring and acknowledge him. And if you're going to reform the bloodline, you let Jacob reform the bloodline. If Jacob wins, it is because the Usos turn on him. They turn on Roman, and you're going to get the new bloodline with Jacob at the helm, leaving Roman on an island. But is there another way? Because in tribal combat, anything goes, ladies and gentlemen. There are no rules. Is there potential for somebody new to debut and maybe cost either Jacob or Roman that title? Ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot to unpack this coming week between Raw, SmackDown, and Clash in Italy. We here at Turnbuckle Studios hope you will be along for the ride with all of us here each and every night of the week. But ladies and gentlemen, as we head out, I would like to remind you all, the world is better with you in it. From all of us here at the Locker Room Breakdown and Turnbuckle Affiliation Program, to those of you out there wherever you are, good night, good luck, I'm out.
In the locker room, a guy you'll find loves bad hockey, teams can't deny. His best friend is just a hand so true, loyal until his turn goes number two. During the heat of the game, it's clear he's a champ when all else disappears. Rally the team with a wink and a cheer.